Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased once again to have my friend Dr. Dwain Neil OBE, and we're going to have a dialogue this morning about his book, Dreams from My Life, My Autobiography. Good morning, Dwain. How are you?
Rudy, good morning. As always, I am well. Are you fine?
I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent.
So, Dwain, the first big question for you. What was it like growing up in Kingston, Jamaica? And how did these early experiences shape your dreams when you arrived in Britain?
Okay, that's a really good question to begin. And do you know, floods of memories come back when you ask about what was it like growing up in Jamaica, and in particular Kingston. I lived in Kingston only for the first 6 years of my life.
Okay.
And then the next 2 years was in Trelawney
Mhm.
with grandparents and aunts and uncles. So when I say I had a wonderfully happy time in those early years in Jamaica, um, I have lots of snippets of memory
Mhm.
from my time in Kingston. You
Mhm.
know, some of those memories are things like making and flying a kite
Okay.
with
Yeah.
my father.
Yeah.
I have very, very strong, lovely memories of learning how to get the kite to rise and learning how to control it when it was so high. And think of it, under six,
Mhm.
a high flying kite could be something that could pull you along
Exactly.
almost. And
Exactly.
also the disaster of the string breaking every now and
Yeah.
then and the kite was lost.
Yeah.
But you know, there are lots of great memories in
Mhm.
addition to that, like being taken to school
Mhm.
again with my dad. And if the driver of the bus was someone he knew, I'd be permitted to be the co-bus driver by
Really?
going up to the front of the bus, holding onto the bar, and pretending I'm steering the bus, you
Okay.
know, round the
Okay.
corners,
Yeah.
stopping at the bus stops, all of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Right.
But the other snippet is I remember the first time my father gave me a tomato.
Mm.
Now, I can tell you it's a tomato because it was the very first time I tasted something that wasn't tart, but it wasn't sweet.
Yeah.
And that distinctive smell of tomato stayed with me my whole life.
Yeah.
So before you bite into your next tomato, just
Okay.
smell it.
Yeah.
That's the smell that I still remember.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, in terms of steering my development
Mm.
in Jamaica, I loved learning.
Mm.
I enjoyed schooling in Kingston. I enjoyed schooling in Trelawney. In the UK, I continued that love of learning.
Mhm.
So I think, if anything, that's the one thing
Mhm.
that shaped my outlook and shaped my actions.
Okay. So you're here in the UK. So can you share a moment when you felt you had truly broken through a barrier that once seemed impossible to overcome?
Oh, goodness, that's an easy one. And I'll tell you why that's an easy one. No one else in my family, to the best of my knowledge, had taken O levels.
Okay.
My dad was literate and numerate, but all of his education was in Jamaica.
Mhm.
My mum was not as literate, but
Mhm.
she was great with numbers because she trained to be a dressmaker.
Yeah.
And, you know, handling all that money, buying materials and so on, you needed to be on it. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be trusted to keep
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. And taking
So,
measurements as well, taking measurements. That's so precise.
all of that, all of that. But my dad read to a higher level than my mother.
Mhm.
And my dad had wonderful handwriting and could compose letters and do all of that. My mum could have a fashion, but she knew my dad was so much better at it. Yeah. So neither of my parents or any of my uncles and aunts, to the best of my knowledge, had ever gone through the barrier of taking O levels, which is clearly the exam system in the UK.
Yeah.
So facing that hurdle without the experience of other people who'd experienced it was daunting. So you would fill your mind with all sorts of imaginary ghosts.
Yeah.
But actually, what I found was if I trusted my approach to examinations, then I was going to be all right. But there was still the uncertainty, would it be good enough until the results came in? And I'm delighted to say that, between 16 and 17, I got 12 O levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so that barrier seemed insurmountable until it was overcome.
Absolutely. Like all barriers.
Absolutely.
So, what motivated you to pursue higher education and to become the first in your family to earn both a degree and a PhD?
Yeah. The bit about being the first in the family first, I am the first child of my mother and father's union. My dad was married before, and there are a couple of other siblings, which I didn't know. My mum had a child before she met my dad, but I am the first child for the union of my mother and father. So, from that standpoint, I was a trailblazer,
Mm-hmm.
but also in terms of ambition, I always wanted to escape the social economic situation I was fully aware of for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, why did I pursue higher education? I wanted to be able to compete for better paid jobs. And as I grew older, and this is through my teens, I realized having a degree would give you a better chance to compete than not having a degree. Now, how did that become a PhD? Pure luck. My favorite professor at university tapped me on the shoulder in the final year of my first degree and asked the question, Dwain, what are you going to do when you get your degree? And I said, I'm going to work. I'm
Good.
21. I've never really had a real job.
Yeah.
I need to earn some money. And he said, this is dear Bill Newton, Dr. Bill Newton,
Mm.
Dwain, you've got your whole life to work. Have you thought about doing postgrad? And to be quite honest, I had not.
Mm.
But I trusted Bill Newton.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to my mum because by then my father had passed away, and she said it was my call. So I went back a few days later and said, done. How do I do it? And he said, I have the perfect spot in my department for you to do that PhD with me. Bingo. Pure luck.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. So, Shell International, and I know that you had a great time there, and later as a business owner. How did all of these experiences influence your approach to leadership and community service?
Okay, that's really interesting question. Um, to be very honest, Shell taught me the most important thing that I was able to use in the past and I am still using. Shell taught me the necessary business acumen in order to run an enterprise successfully. So when I applied to Shell, tender age of 24, I was at the top of my scientific game. I had a PhD. I was part of a handful of people in my field who had done wonderful things. But my heart was with the private sector because, as I said earlier, I found I was allergic to being poor. So my deal when I applied to Shell was, look, I'm a scientist. You want scientists,
Mhm.
but I want to be trained to be a businessman. And Shell delivered on that.
Mm.
So that's where my business acumen came from.
Mhm.
That's the business acumen I used in my own business, Lyrico and Associate, for almost 20 years, made pots of money. And I was delighted because it actually gave me the platform of independence.
Mm.
But leadership did not come
Yeah.
with Shell. Leadership I already had. And here is why I say that. With my father passing away when I was 10, Mum was very good at divvying up the chores between myself and siblings. Being the eldest boy, I was tasked with taking responsibility for my younger siblings. And so at an early age, I had responsibility. I had to deliver on that trusted task.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first taste of leadership. Secondly, I was a Boy Scout from I was about 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I loved summer camps.
Mm-hmm.
And at my first summer camp, I was invited to lead the younger scouts on little expeditions. Great responsibility, great trust from the senior scout people and the scoutmaster. And again, I discovered I liked leading. So over and above those early tastes of it, I also knew if I was going to get through the education system, I had to apply the same leadership to my approach to my work. Because without saying too much against my school, it was in utter chaos. And getting the work done in order to be able to pass your exams was very much down to me. It wasn't down to the teachers, it wasn't down to my peers. So prior to joining Shell, I was already very familiar with leadership.
Responsibility that goes with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on, what inspired you to found the Reach Society, and what impact are you most proud of so far?
Lots of things I can say I'm proud of, and I'll come on to those. But the inspiration for co-founding Reach Society with a couple of friends came from anger and annoyance and frustration. Folks who've been following government schemes to help the Black community hopefully will see what I saw. All of those schemes failed. And the one that failed and annoyed me the most was the Reach National Role Model Program. Started in 2008, was supposed to run for 3 years, but failed after 18 months. Two of my friends who co-founded Reach Society with me were involved. And they said, yes, it was making a difference, but now that it failed, what can we do?
Yeah.
It was that question of what can we do that led the three of us, after 6 months of conversation, to founding Reach Society.
Yeah.
So that annoyance was the driving force. And very simply, we were responding to something we all knew in our hearts, but which we put into words.
Yeah.
It is our responsibility as the adults in the Black community to take responsibility for inspiring our children. And that's exactly what we started to do. And we are still doing. Coming on to the question of what are we proud of? We've been going for 15 years, and 2026 is the start of our 16th year. In the first 15 years, we've impacted over 50,000 young people across the country in 6 cities, in Manchester, Birmingham, London, Luton, Leicester, Wolverhampton. And we continue now to inspire typically 7,000 to 8,000 young people every year across the country. So we feel that what we are doing is making a difference, and we know we need to continue to do that. So lots we can say we're proud of because we're demonstrating the agency that's necessary to make a difference in our community.
Excellent. So who are some of the other people whose kindness and support made the biggest difference in your personal journey?
Oh, Rudy, I understand now fully why people will sometimes say, I have been lucky. And I don't mean they're talking about me, but they're talking about themselves. But if I were to use that same phrase about myself, that I have been lucky, what I'm really saying is that every step of the way, there has been people who have done something kind or helpful that has made a difference. And in no particular order, let me start by saying Sir Jeff Palmer, who was our patron of Reach Society for 10 years, was one of those people. Mm-hmm. Sir Jeff Palmer said 18 months ago, I know lots of organizations. Reach Society is doing far more than those organizations. We should raise our profile. Now, that prompted me to having a conversation with my colleagues, and we are doing that. We have raised our profile. Yeah. Prior to Sir Jeff Palmer, I would say my colleague, Donald Douglas, he is my most senior co-pilot, who's actually worked closely with me to design and unfold many of the things we're doing. Donald Palmer, one of the co-founders of Reach Society. Going back, Shell. When I joined Shell, I was adopted by a gentleman by the name of George Howard. And George Howard was the marketing director. And he basically said to me, Dwain, it is my job to mentor you to understand how Shell operates in order that your potential can be realized. The first 5 years of my life were very much under his guidance, and it made a huge difference to my progress. I've mentioned this other person, Bill Newton, Dr. Bill Newton. Without Bill Newton, I probably today would not be Dr. Neil. But, you know, I have to talk about at least a couple of other people. My parents, absolutely, because they were front and center supportive of me and encouraging me as a child. And that encouragement is still with me. And of course, my wife, Paula, because it is not well known that when I started talking about writing my autobiography, she was right there saying, you should. Yeah. You should do it. Yeah. So there are lots of people who I can point to, 2 or 3 in school, perhaps Mr. Williams in my primary school, who said to the class repeatedly, it is better to know a little bit about a lot of things than a lot of things about just 1 or 2 things. Yeah, absolutely. And over time, I have realized the wisdom of that nugget of advice that I picked up at about the age of 10. Okay. So loads of people, Rudy.
So what message from Dreams from My Life do you hope most readers will carry into their own lives?
I think readers will take different things from the book. And I may have one particular message, but I know it will land differently on lots of people. For example, about 100 people have now read Dreams from My Life. It hasn't officially come out yet, but those people have all contacted me directly, and they've requested a copy. You included, absolutely. And they've already been kind enough to give me feedback. And one of the most consistent feedback that I'm getting is there are so many parallels between your life and my life. And I wasn't expecting that, but the more I hear that, I keep asking myself, why weren't you expecting that? Because they're alive now, like you, and many of my experiences, you know, the early discrimination in school and so forth, some of them will have experienced that as well. The opportunities of people helping you along the way, many of us will have experienced it as well. So I'm less surprised when I hear that now. But I would say if folks were to look not too deeply into it, they will see that I've explored. New things have come my way, and I've taken the opportunity to explore them. New things have come my way, and I've discovered things by virtue of pursuing them. New things have come my way, and I've learned from those experiences. And what I've tried to do is to use the things learned to good effect in my life. I've got an acronym for all of that. It's called EDIALS. Explore, discover, learn, and succeed. So if folks were to take away the EDIALS message, then who knows? it could make a difference in their lives.
Excellent, excellent. So you've spoken about individuals that have had the greatest impact on shaping both your personal and professional journey. Can you kind of just give us some thoughts in terms of how their individual belief in you inspired you to change choices that you made at key moments in your life? So,
Well, belief is such a powerful force because
mm,
if you know you've got backing from a number of sources, then it's going to give you that sense of you really need to continue. Now, the example that comes to mind is my mother. My mother, knowing that I was very good at science,
mhm,
said to me, Dwain, I think you should become a doctor.
okay, of
And
course.
loving my mother, trusting my mother, I pursued that.
Mm,
But, I had the experience of meeting my first cadaver at Southampton University. And the doctor that was showing us around asked all of us to put our finger in the hole in the side of this cadaver, chloroform all over it, a white sheet all over it, but here was this gaping hole in the side of this body.
yeah,
And the moment I touched that cold, dead, chloroformed body, I knew medicine was not
not for
for
you.
me. So that
Yeah,
support was
yeah,
great in
yeah,
moving me in a particular direction.
yeah,
But it also convinced me I needed to do something else.
yeah,
I continued with my love of science and actually studied physics and chemistry joint honors, as is covered in my book at
yeah,
University of Manchester.
yeah.
But that
Excellent.
trust kept me looking at higher education, even though the subject that I chose in the end wasn't the one they thought I would be good at.
Yeah, interesting. So, after your greatest professional success, what was the most important lesson that you learned about leadership, purpose, or yourself?
Yeah, I I actually had a foretaste of the greatest facet of leadership when I was a teenager. I would look at quotes, and the ones that really struck me, I would write out and blue tack them above my bed.
Mhm.
And the one that I'm about to share said this: if you want to lead, learn how to serve.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
want to lead, learn how to serve.
Mhm.
And I believe that was so profound. And if I look at my life
Mhm.
and the things I've done, it all aligns with that. Yes, I'm comfortable leading, but in almost all of the situations where I've led, it has a big component of serving others in it.
Mhm.
So that for me is the key lesson.
Mhm. And finally, looking back, what advice would you give Dwayne Neal at 12 years old, growing up with humble beginnings but extraordinary potential?
Dwain Neil at 12 years old, isn't that very interesting? Dwain Neil at 12 years old would be in the first year towards the start of the second year in secondary
Mhm.
education.
Mhm.
Um, I actually think I would simply be saying to him, don't worry quite so much about the future. Keep doing what you're doing because what you're doing will get you there. But when you're a 12-year-old and the world seems such a long way away, I
Yeah.
can remember thinking in my secondary school up to fifth form, which is the top end of year, key stage 4 or year, whatever it is now, year 10. Um, I remember thinking in those years, my goodness, school is going on forever. When is it going to come to an end? And then I got the answer very quickly. I went into the sixth form, and we're talking about, year 12 and 13. And the haha moment came. Sixth form was only 2 years, and then I'll be out of school. So I had to recognize the fact that I'd gone from thinking, my goodness, school is lasting forever, to my goodness, it's going to end very soon. But at least at that stage, I was already aspiring to higher education, and my A levels were with purpose. They were about getting me into higher education. So, yeah.
Okay. And finally, where can people get the book?
My publishers are Hansib Publications.
Right.
And Hansib Publications have a fabulous network, a fabulous relationship with all the major book suppliers. So anyone who wants to get a copy, simply go on Amazon, or simply go on Waterstones, or simply go on any of the well-known bookshops and request it. Because once you know the title, you know my name as the author, they will be able to get it. It may not be in your local store, but you can request it through your local store, or you can order it online. So readily available. And Hansip tells me through Amazon, it's available globally, which sounds exciting, doesn't
That's
it?
great. So you've gone global.
I've gone global. We shall see.
Yeah. Excellent. So, as always, Dwain, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Take care and
Indeed.
see you again soon.
Rudy, thank you. You have been a big supporter of the things I'm doing and also the things we're doing in Reach Society.
Yeah.
And long may that continue.
Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Bye.